Hi, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to today's BOC Group webinar. I'm glad that you are all here with us today. The topic for today is Enterprise Portfolio Management with TOGAF and ArchiMate, your basis for sustainable and company-wide change management. Here on the screen are a few tips to follow the webinar more effectively. And during the webinar, all participants are welcome to ask questions. We will do our best to answer them. And please use the side panel on the right side of your screen in order to do so. Depending on the time remaining at the end, we may answer one or two questions, and any that remain unanswered, we will be sure to answer them via email in the coming days. As a participant, your name and email are, of course, anonymous to other participants. My name is Vincent Paquette. I am your host today, and as an expert on the topic, I would like you to greet my dear colleague Tom Brennan, who will lead you through the content-related part of our webinar today. Today, Tom will give us insights on identifying the right transformation projects, as well as implementing enterprise portfolio management using our EAM suite ADOIT and the ArchiMate modeling language. Before we get started, though, please let me give you a brief overview of the activities of the BOC Group. So the BOC Group was founded in 1995 as a spin-off to the University of Vienna, and today it has more than 230 employees in 8 countries. We sell our work products, implementation projects, and consulting services in more than 50 countries, building on with the support of a strong partner network. We are particularly proud that nearly 100,000 users of our free community editions have registered worldwide. With this experience of more than 20 years in IT-based management domains, we now have more than 35,000 installations of our commercial software products in companies around the world. Our products from the BOC Management Office are primarily aimed at facilitating changes in business and IT. We accomplish this by creating the necessary visibility into your process architecture or enterprise architecture, thus helping you to better understand and control change. The portfolio of our products include, on the left, the well-known ADOIT for business process management, analysis, and optimization. On the right, ADOIT for IT management and enterprise architecture. And in the middle, GRC for governance, risk, and compliance. All 3 of these products embrace a powerful common platform, allowing users to model processes or architectures, run analytics and reports, assess risks, and more through a web-based approach. This platform is characterized by very high flexibility in the configuration, also allowing the implementation of very specific customer requirements through customizing. Our international customers, as well as renowned analysts such as Forrester and Gartner, have become increasingly aware of us in recent years and are a positive testimony to our developments and future plans. We are particularly proud of our results in the Forrester Wave for Architecture Management Suites. From the study, we emerge as a global leader with our EA suite ADOIT. So please take a few minutes and browse through the respective reviews and the reports on our website. So Tom is already prepared and will guide you through the topic Enterprise Portfolio Management with TOGAF and ArchiMate, your basis for sustainable and company-wide change management.
Okay, thanks very much, Vincent, for today's introduction. I'd also like to welcome all of our attendees today, and it's great to actually see such a wide interest in today's webinar on Enterprise Portfolio Management with TOGAF and ArchiMate. So today we're going to see how the structure of the TOGAF with the ADM cycle and the modeling method of ArchiMate can be applied in our latest version of ADOIT. So what can you expect from today's webinar? Well, we're going to start by examining what is enterprise architecture. We can then discuss where TOGAF came from and what it consists of. We will look at some different project approaches with EA, such as a more project or portfolio-driven initiative. I'll then introduce what enterprise portfolio management is, and we'll look at some of the typical questions that such an initiative is trying to answer and to address. We can then begin to examine what sort of a meta model is required to support such an initiative, and we'll see what ArchiMate offers as a modeling language and how we can apply the ArchiMate approach in a more minimal kind of meta model, a more targeted based approach based on your stakeholders' requirements. And then we'll finish up today's session with a brief demo of ADOIT together with ArchiMate to see how we can firstly structure the repository and also deliver on sustainable change management with looking at the various inputs required for enterprise portfolio management. Okay, so to begin with the definition, so what is enterprise architecture management? There's lots of definitions available, but essentially EAM describes the relationships of your elementary design objects of a company, meaning your goals, products, processes, applications, and technologies, along with their ongoing development. So what we mean is that the collection, mapping, and analysis of these elements plays the essential role with EAM. So it's typically the process of trying to implement the corporate vision and strategy based on certain principles and patterns that are then used to describe your current and future state. And then relationships across all the different layers of the architecture that you can see here are modeled. So this is quite a high level meta model picture, so we can work from our strategy layer down through our business application and technology layers, but also taking into account and considering risks, roles, KPIs, projects and initiatives that are used to manage and to try and govern a successful transformation project or process. So with the introduction of and management of projects and initiatives, you're trying to actively manage the required changes to get from your current state architecture through the transformation architecture to finally deliver your target architecture. So your target architecture is typically going to be based on current market trends, projects that can be introduced as well with the availability of new technologies, or there may be some new regulations or laws that you need to be compliant with, or new projects can also be required just from the day-to-day demands internally from the business. So this is really why a structured approach to EA is really vital for successful transformation. So that brings us then with the introduction of TOGAF, which is a standard framework for implementing enterprise architecture within an organization. It was developed by the Open Group in the mid-90s, and it's a framework with valuable guiding tips for implementing EA. But at the heart of TOGAF is the architecture development method, or the ADM kind of cycle, which is an iterative approach to implementing successful transformation projects in any company. It's based on your corporate strategy, so what are the strategic goals and objectives that you're trying to implement, and it's the analysis then of all of the various layers of your as-is architecture, trying to define a target architecture, seeing what requirements you have and what projects are needed to actually get to your future state architecture, and then the implementation, governance, and monitoring of these projects. So that's what our TOGAF gives us as a whole. But typical EA projects are going to be driven by the IT team, or they may be a result of requirements that are coming from the business, or it could be a combination of both. But at one level, they could be portfolio driven, so just focusing on one layer of the architecture, or they could be more focused actually on delivering a specific strategic goal, so a more individualized project driven approach. But ideally for EA, it should be really a combination of both, that they should not be kind of mutually exclusive, portfolio versus project. But I'll try and outline what I mean, what the difference between the two is on the following slide. So again, here we have the ADM from TOGAF, as I mentioned, which is the structured and iterative approach for EA. So in phase A, we're trying to define our architectural and strategic goals that we're trying to achieve. And with the more project-focused approach, the whole objective of the EA initiative is to deliver a solution related to a single goal. So all of the transformation project planning is focused around the individual goals you have defined in the early stages of the ADM. And you can then use the ADM cycle to do one full iteration, all the time being focused on delivering on one specific goal or a strategic objective. And then when the project is over, the goal is then to communicate the benefits and added value to all of your different stakeholders involved, and especially to the project sponsor who would have supported the full execution. With the alternative approach to EAM, you can focus on a single portfolio or application scenario, so to speak. So perhaps this is happening in parallel with within the same organization just by different teams or business units, so the portfolio approach can run in parallel with the project-driven approach. But again, the ADM is the starting point. But rather than doing a full iteration through all layers of the architecture, you just focus on a single architecture layer or phase of the ADM. So here you're more looking for kind of systematic identification of where things can actually improve based on the knowledge that you have to hand. So it's a real more continuous approach to improving the architecture, but from a more kind of siloed perspective, focusing just on one, maybe application portfolio management. So you're dealing with all of your applications, or it could be focusing on the data portfolio or technologies, or just requirements here in the center. So it could just be requirements portfolio management. So if we look at the difference visually, what the difference is between project versus a portfolio-driven approach, you can see here that with a project-based approach that I described, that's solely focused on one strategic goal. Obviously it starts at the strategic level because that's where your goals are defined, but the affected area of such a transformation project will be felt like a kind of a puncture through all of the various architecture layers that you have. So there's going to be some impact felt across the board, where portfolio-based projects that focus just on a single architectural level generally kind of address the company in its entirety based on that architecture layer. So if we think about application portfolio management, again, you're addressing all applications within your organization. So the focus of today's webinar is on the enterprise portfolio approach for EAM, which we're going to now look at in some more details, and we can see what kind of questions can be answered basically along the way. So just another definition. So what do we actually mean by enterprise portfolio management? So essentially it's about determining which assets within your architecture that you want to keep, which ones need to be changed, and maybe which ones need to be replaced, and which ones do we need to actually procure, or where do we need to go and buy something new. So again, it's systematic management of your assets within a company. So it's going to be very easy with all of the projects going on for the enterprise landscape to get out of control and really difficult to manage. If you have new services which are constantly being offered to customers based on the market demands, these changes are going to lead to new processes, maybe new or improved applications. And we also need to think about the required infrastructure as well. So without well-managed EA, there's going to be a lack of an enterprise-wide view on what you already have, being the assets, and also with the view of what you want. So what you have versus what you want. So what changes or what new business requirements are you trying to address? And this is all going to have a knock-on to the various portfolios that you're managing, as I said, application or technology or data. So the starting point, or the kind of basis for any transformation project, should begin with asking yourself some questions like, which assets do you want to acquire? Which ones do you want to change? What needs to be replaced, or which ones need to be kind of phased out? And based on these decisions, the projects and initiatives can then be derived to actually realize the changes that you're trying to implement. So we're really looking towards using the enterprise architecture then as both the tool, but also as the data set, as a centralized kind of repository or centralized data set to provide you with the information to assist you in any of the decision-making processes. So typically the same kind of questions arise for every transformation project that you do. Again, enterprise portfolio management helps you to answer some of these questions, and the focus is not exclusively on the current transformation project as it would be in a more individual project-based approach, but with portfolio management, you're really trying to get a higher level holistic view of the company, the ecosystem, and the necessary transformations, but you can still focus on just one layer at a time. So here are just some examples of the types of questions that you can get asked during the different phases or at the different layers of the architecture. So maybe during the preliminary stage or phase A of TOGAF, you might be asked, okay, I want to find out what the strategic goals of our company are and which ones are going to be influenced by the upcoming transformation project. So which actual goals are we focusing on? At the business architecture layer, you will want to know maybe what your current business capabilities are, and maybe where you are looking to invest in the year ahead, so what capabilities are maybe poorly supported by the current IT architecture. If we're looking at phase C, so the information systems architecture of TOGAF, we may ask, okay, which application services are going to be relevant for the impacted area, or which applications are going to be changed, or do we actually need to develop or put something completely new together? At the same level, we also need to focus on the impact of the process data. So what data is going to be needed for the transformation project, and also from which applications can we actually get the data that we need. Looking forward to the next phase of TOGAF, so for the technology architecture, phase D, we may need to consider which technologies are available, so what technologies are we actually currently using, and what does a suitable technology stack look like based on our future state plans of this transformation. So for phase E and F of the ADM, there could be questions like what parts of the existing solution architecture are going to be changed, what's the effect of the implementation, and how can we actually monitor our current project portfolio. So how can we know the current state of the projects that are currently going on. And for phase G and H, and especially for change management, you need to know what does the overall project portfolio look like, and were the requirements that we gathered, were they actually implemented as specified. It could be the case, okay, are we actually ready to begin another transformation cycle? So have we actually achieved all of the goals that we set out for in the beginning? So obviously here, as we just saw, there's lots of different concerns that need to be addressed as part of enterprise portfolio management, or an enterprise portfolio management initiative, especially when it comes to a transformation project. So to be able to manage and address all of the concerns from the different stakeholders involved, you need to have an agreed way of describing the architecture, first of all, together with all of the critical relations and dependencies that are going to exist across the enterprise architecture and all of the different layers. So you need to be able to, with the defined language that you use, you need to be able to satisfy the likes of the enterprise architect, who is basically overseeing everything that's going on, but also the needs of the business analyst, or maybe the application owner, who's going to be responsible for just a portion of the application portfolio, which will obviously then need to be addressed as well. So you're going to have different stakeholders asking questions like what we just saw on the previous slides. So you should really have a kind of a minimal meta model that can address all of the various concerns that the different stakeholders have. So that actually takes us now to ArchiMate. Looking at ArchiMate, first of all, which was developed around 2002 to 2004 by the Telematica Institute, but it's now owned, and the Open Group are now also responsible for ArchiMate. So what is ArchiMate? It's a global standard. Again, it's a graphical language for representing enterprise architectures, which provides a notation for describing, analyzing, and visualizing the relationships among the different business domains. So version 3 has been around since 2016, and with about 60 classes and 6 layers and a number of, I think 11 different relationship types, it allows you to describe your EA. And it allows you to relate the concrete elements across all of the different layers that you see here in the full framework of ArchiMate. Here, just looking at a little excerpt from the language notation for elements of ArchiMate, together with their definitions. And we can see an assignment to both the layer of ArchiMate as well as the aspect. And as you can see, all of the modeling elements that are found at each layer are also color-coded in ArchiMate, so that you know what the object represents, and their aspect is then identifiable by the shape of the object. So, for example, you can see here with the motivation elements, so elements that belong to the motivation aspect are depicted using boxes with diagonal corners, and they're colored kind of light purple, like the requirement element there on the slide. So the modeling language and the semantics of ArchiMate is very specific, but the 3 aspects provided in the core framework was basically inspired. How it was put together was to follow like natural language, where a sentence has a subject, which in this case is the active structure, such as a business actor, or an application, which is the behavior, such as a process or a function, and an object, which is in ArchiMate is the passive structure, such as the data object, as they don't actually perform any behavior. So that's how ArchiMate was put together, to make it easily understandable. And the relationship to TOGAF is also quite definitive, as each layer of the ArchiMate framework matches and maps actually very well to the TOGAF ADM cycle. And the color-coded artifacts also relate to each phase of the ADM, so from the strategy and motivation through each layer of business, application and technology, right through to the implementation and migration. So they're actually obviously both now controlled by the open groups. So there's a good fit between the ArchiMate language and TOGAF's ADM cycle. But with ArchiMate, there's obviously quite a number of concepts and a lot of possible relationships and dependencies that you can use. So it's quite hard to get your head around everything as you begin to use ArchiMate from the start. But the label of the relation signifies the role of the source element in the relationship. So for an example, an application service is defined as serving a business process. But the most important question for all new users who are thinking about adopting the standard is to find out which concepts are actually relevant for you and your architecture initiative. So the success of any initiative is going to depend on the adoption of whatever modeling approach you take, and ideally the modelers and the stakeholders using ArchiMate should not be kind of overwhelmed by too many objects and too many relations, especially in the beginning. So in ADOIT, with our latest release of ADOIT, we can provide the full ArchiMate standard. So we have a meta model that provides the full standard, but based on our kind of years and experience of modeling, and together with our own ADOIT standard meta model, we have created a small but targeted or more minimal ArchiMate meta model, which we see as a good starting point and introduction to the standard. So the meta model still covers the core layers and the core aspects of the full ArchiMate framework, and provides support for a wide variety of stakeholders, as we saw earlier, who have different concerns related to the different parts of the architecture. So yeah, as I said, it could be a business analyst looking at the business architecture layer, trying to analyze the business process performance of maybe a department, trying to work out what applications are serving the business process and potentially causing some performance issues. Or it could be somebody from the technology architecture team, a technology owner who knows that some of their system software elements that they own or that they're responsible for is going to be decommissioned, and they want to find out what the impact that will be on the application architecture layer. So yeah, just to note that the full meta model is available for ArchiMate and ADOIT, but we also have a small, more targeted meta model, more aligned to the ADOIT standard framework that you may be, or standard meta model that you may be familiar with previously. Okay, so just going to jump into the tool now to take a look directly at ADOIT. So yeah, going to log in here as the architect. So it's a full role-based approach within ADOIT. So depending on what role you have, what responsibilities you have, the kind of user experience within ADOIT will match what you need to perform on a daily basis. So in this scenario, we just have two scenarios active. So the additional one for control and release, the kind of release workflow for ADOIT is not part of this demo environment. So we're just going to use the design and documents scenario today, where you go in and actually create content and create the various relations and dependencies and all of the analysis and reporting. The govern and manage scenario is more of a kind of a helicopter view of the current state of your architecture. So just going to jump into design and documents and turn off the time filter for now. So here on the right hand side we have this My Architecture Elements portal. So for my architect user, Archie, I'm responsible for all of these different elements here. So you can see with the color coding that, okay, a lot of thing is in a red state, so I need to go in and do some checking to make sure everything is up to date. Then we can confirm it and we change it to a green state here. And we can also now see some RACI information in the portal as well, and we can get a object report directly here as well. So it's just quick access to some reports. We can keep a quick check from a governance perspective to make sure everything is up to date, and you can get an overview of everything in the architecture that you're responsible for, from capabilities, system software, any projects or initiatives that's going on, to our application components here, so in our application portfolio. And then on the left-hand side, we've got some quick links here for creating some views at the various layers of our architecture, as well as all of the different elements that we have available in ArchiMate. Okay, so just to start, I'm just going to create a application component here. So with the quick link here, create an application component. As a quick way, when we do, it's automatically created here in the Object Explorer on the left-hand side, and the notebook of the object also opens up here on the right-hand side. So we can just begin to document a CRM system. Some other attributes that we can see here, we've got a specialization, so whether it's a logical or a physical application, so we can say maybe it's physical. We can also define the type here as well, so we can say it's whether it's an application group, the top level application, or a sub-application. We'll leave it as application for now, and we can add some description here, so tool to manage customer data. Okay, and just save that for now. So we can also see here that some attributes are identified as being mandatory attributes. So the description here with the little asterisk beside the attribute means that from a validation perspective, I need to include a description. So you can set up different validation rules yourself as to define what are the mandatory attributes that you would like your stakeholders to document. So what an application owner should actually, what relations and attribute values they should manage. And we could also assign responsibility here, so we can see with the little red asterisks that we've got a couple of other mandatory attributes that we would like to manage as well. But for now, we can just leave it as it is. And then when you create an object from using the quick links, it goes into your unassigned folder, and then you could just begin to move the application up into its the proper location within the architecture, so within the repository here. So we could move our CRM system into our application folder if we wanted to. So it's quite easy to maintain the right structure here. We have our ADO Money Bank example here, split by various scenarios within EA. So from a governance perspective, enterprise architecture management, which is split into transformation, business information systems, technology and organization, and various other folders here just to configure the structure of the repository. Okay, so let's just look at another application where we have some more attributes documented. So I'm just going to open up the notebook here within our ADO Money Bank example for our partner system application. So we can just look at some additional information. So in here we can see who's actually responsible. So I'm responsible for this application already, my user. But if we look into the relationships, we can see what other elements within the architecture that our partner system application realizes. We can see here it's composed of some interfaces. We can see the partner system application accesses some business objects or some data, and it also serves some business processes. So within the notebook of the element in ADOIT, you can really get a good sense of all of the relationships and the dependencies that exist. But it's with these relationships and dependencies that we can begin to do our analysis. So as part of our demo here today, we're going to do an example of using our ADO Money Bank scenario. So we know that our ADO Money Bank has some defined goals and objectives. So we're going to just open up the strategy model first of all. So here within our business goals for 2019, we can see here, if I just zoom in a little bit, so one of the top level goals here is to increase our revenue by 25% until the year 2023, and there are some sub objectives or goals defined to try and achieve this target in the next few years. So one of the sub goals is to increase customer satisfaction. So in order to try and achieve this goal, we know that from some market analysis that there's strong customer demand for an interactive online banking app that's going to have the possibility to make payments contactlessly. So to introduce the new banking app, we're going to have to define a new transformation project. So as I mentioned earlier, we need to consider what the impact is going to be with the introduction of a new online banking system on our current architecture. And we also want to try and answer as many questions as possible for the various stakeholders who may be involved. So the first question we need to consider is, okay, we're looking to introduce a new banking app. So it's going to be for our private customers. So which data am I going to need to use, or am I going to need to access as part of the transformation project? So I'm just going to switch back to the Object Explorer, and we know it's going to be our private customers. So I'm just going to search for customers. So we can see here in the Explorer where the term customer pops up. So we've got some goals, some other goals here. We've got some processes for our customers. But around our business objects, which is our data elements, we can see we've got business customer and private customer data elements. So we know that we're targeted to the private customers. So the next question would be then, so we found the data that we need. So we now need to find out which applications currently provide us with this private customer information, and also which applications do I have access to that are also able to access the private customer. So which application provides it, and which applications actually use the private customer data as well. So to actually analyze our business object here, we can create a view down here, business impact analysis view, to see which applications are actually accessing our business or our private customer data. Okay, so we've got an automatically generated view here showing us our business processes that are consuming or processing the data, as well as the various applications. So we've got a whole bunch of applications here that we know are using our private customer data, but we need to find out what sort of access the other applications have to this data. So in order to see which kind of access each of the applications that we have here, so we can just select a range of applications, and from here we can directly generate a new matrix view looking at the application component and which application components are accessing the which business objects. Okay, so now we've got an overview of all of the different business objects that each of the applications we used for the analysis is accessing, and we can switch the view here to see what kind of access each application has. So just looking at the legend here, we can see that there's a couple of violations where more than one application here, so in this case for our contract data, we've got more than one application. Both the credit manager and the sales system are both able to write to this, to actually edit this contract data. So if we just double click here on the cell, we can see that our access type is read and write, but we shouldn't have read and write because it's not actually the master data. So we can change that to just read, save it there and close it, refresh our view, and we now have removed the violation here. But we're actually interested only in the private customer data for now. So we can see that there's no violation here, and the application that actually provides or is the master application for the private customer data is our partner system application. So we know that we're going to have to actually, if we create the new online banking app, at some stage we're going to need to have an interface to our partner system application to access this private customer data. So we can first of all take a look to see, okay, what other applications are using or providing partner system with its data. And to do that, we can do it straight from here as well with an interface report. So it's another automatically generated view. It's called a report, but it's really in the structure of a business impact analysis. So again, we can see our partner system application here in the center. We can see which interfaces it's composed of and which other applications are using the data through the various interfaces that we have. And we can also see the interfaces that partner system application is consuming as well to get data from these three applications at the top. But an interface that we want to create should only be built into an application that is actually going to be remain in the company. So we make sure we want to be creating an interface to both an application that's performing well, but also an application that's going to be around for a while. So we can do a couple of analysis here using our business impact analysis first. So we can check first of all on the health of all of our applications that we have. So we can create a view here, a portfolio view. So with the portfolio view, you can see here in the name, we're analyzing our applications based on their business fit, their cost fit, and how strategically important they are. So this is just another predefined portfolio view to check on the all of our applications to see how well they are performing in terms of an assessment across these three perspectives. So we have our cost fit, our business fit, and the size of the bubble indicates how strategically important our application is. So we can see here there's one application that's poorly performing. So if we hover over the bubble, we can see that it's the actual partner system application. So this is our application that we need to create the interface to in order to access the private customer data. But as we can see, it's actually not performing very well. So maybe we want to see if there is a plan to keep the application into the future. So to do that, again, we can jump back to our business impact analysis where we had all of the various applications that can access our private customer data. And here we can just do another view that we have. So there's 5 different view types in ADOIT. We've looked at the business impact, the portfolio, and the matrix, but I'm just going to look at one more view today, which is the Gantt view, which we use to look at more typically for kind of life cycle information. Okay, so if we just look at the legend of this particular view, we can see that our partner system application, okay, it's actually planned to be, it's only valid until the first quarter in 2019, and it's eventually going to be replaced by this business partner application. So we can see our business partner application was implemented start date was in the Q1 of 2017, and it went kind of productive. It's valid from the end of 2017, and you can see it's going to be valid into the future. So there's no point in creating or defining a new interface from our new online banking app to our partner system. We should really focus on the business partner application moving forward. So as you can see from these kind of simple examples, enterprise portfolio management is really going to be the basis for any transformation project that you have, and therefore also to have more sustainable change management. So it's just really to assist you in your decision-making process. So with the well-documented portfolio, which you're able to access at any time in the course of a project for trying to realize certain requirements, you're going to be using the same data set in a central repository, so you're able to analyze it basically from multiple perspectives, again based on the portfolio approach across the full meta model in ADOIT. So as you can see, that there's a kind of an overlap between the project-based approach and also the portfolio-based approach, which should really be the typical place where transformation projects kind of sit within an organization for maximum benefit. Okay, so that's just the end of the ADOIT demo. I hope that gives you a good feel for what's possible in the tool, especially in terms of enterprise portfolio management. So yeah, it would be great if you would like to start your EPM journey with BOC and with ADOIT. You can see a list of the benefits there. Some things we didn't get to see today, like release workflow to actually steer and control any changes, and also kind of traceability and communication options directly within ADOIT, as well as additional reporting options. But if you would like to contact us for a free live demo, you can do so directly on our website. But yeah, that's the end of my part of today's webinar. So I'd now like to pass you back to Vincent, who will wrap up today's session. So thanks, Vincent.
Thank you, Tom. I hope you all enjoyed the webinar today. Before moving on, let's just take a look at the upcoming events here with the BOC group. For our last webinar of 2018, we will actually be hosting one called Optimizing Business Processes, Methods, and Best Practices, and this will be taking place on the 6th of December. Don't forget as well that there is a variety of useful articles or other webinar recordings waiting for you in our online library. This really puts an end to today's webinar. We will gladly answer any of the open questions by email in the coming days. We're really happy here at the BOC group to see that so many people took part today. We hope that we can meet your expectations. And don't forget to subscribe to our newsletter, stay informed about free events and other interesting news. Also, it would give us great pleasure to receive your feedback on the webinar, so you will receive an email regarding that in the coming days. On behalf of Tom and I, we wish you all a nice day. Thank you.